Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar session for today on title Lesson Learned from the CALOHEA Project. I'm Munira, your host for today. Welcome to this e-Symposium, where we gather to explore the innovative work of the CALOHEA Project. We are honored to have with us a lineup of a great speakers who are experts in their respective fields. Therefore, allow me to introduce three of our honorable speakers for today. First, we have Datuk Professor Dr. Ahmad Farhan, Vice Chancellor of University Putra Malaysia. Second was Professor Dr. Hazri from School of Educational Studies, University Science Malaysia. And our third speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saiful Bahri, Director of Center for Development of Academic Excellence, CDAE, and also an Associate Professor at School of Medical Sciences, USM. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not keep you waiting any longer. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saiful Bahri as moderator for this session.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good afternoon everyone. First of all, just to let you know, I'm not able to open up my video because my camera having problem at this moment. All right, so I hope it's okay. I hope the other two speakers will switch on your video so that other people can see both of you. All right, so welcome again everyone. Thank you so much for participating in this e-symposiums. So as was mentioned by the MC just now, I think today we are going to wrap up our our series of webinar related to CALOHEA. And for your information, we had already 3 webinars previously that mentioned on authentic assessment, student workload, as well as the competency. So today is, I think, the final webinar that we are going to have, and we will talk about our different perspective from different subject area. For example, let me just reintroduce you. Dr. Professor Farhan is the current Vice Chancellor for UPM. And then he is a former coordinator for civil engineering subject, subject area group for CALOHEA Project. All right. So, and then the second speaker, Professor Hazri, former director of IPTTN and the current lead team members for the teacher education in USM. So we are quite lucky to have both of them. And myself is currently the coordinator for medicine subject area group for CALOHEA, and we are basically going to wrap up and then to share our own perspective without any text, so solely based on our observation, experience, as well as what we think the CALOHEA will already bring to change and to have impacts on how we see higher educations from different subject area perspective. All right, so I think without further ado, let's welcome our first speaker, Datuk Professor Farhan, to present his thoughts on what he learned so far from CALOHEA Project. So please welcome Datuk.
Thank you very much, Saiful. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. First of all, I would like to thank you all the the organizer, as well as my fellow presenter today. It has been a while since I actually talked about CALOHEA, so allow me to share my thoughts about this. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thank you. So thank you for all that have participated in this webinar, and congratulations to the team CALOHEA of USM, who has actually diligently used this platform to expand the CALOHEA project to others who may who have just perhaps learned about this project. So as mentioned, I have been involved in CALOHEA from starting, but unfortunately towards the end, I have to surrender the honor of coordinating the civil engineering SAG due to my new responsibility here at UPM. So I will just, I think we have 20 minutes as well, 30 minutes.
20 to 35 minutes.
Oh, okay. So let me
30 minutes
just...
also can.
Huh?
30 minutes also can of
Okay, all right. So I think for the benefit of those who are new, this is basically CALOHEA. The acronym is Measuring and Comparing Achievements of Learning Outcomes in Higher Education in Asia. It involves universities from Southeast Asia, as well as our colleagues who acts as a role of as mentors as well. From other places, and as mentioned, we have civil engineering, medicine, and teachers education. These are the objective. Basically, we are to contribute to internationalization of higher education institution and looking at mutual recognition of degrees. Okay, so it's actually encouraging mobility, exchange programs, and mutual recognition of all our programs, be it in the context of CALOHEA, civil engineering, teachers education, and medicine. And we have three so-called recognition mechanism or three focus areas. One is about the framework or the qualification framework, student workload, and finally on authentic assessment. And my colleagues have actually shared the details of it, which I will not do again, but I will just make some view, my personal view of things, things that we can learn and perhaps can be learned by others, our audience today, and also my criticism towards recommendation for improvement. So that would be the approach, the looking at the motivation and aspiration. So I will look into the lessons learned with respect to the motivation and aspiration of the study. We will dissect a bit on the methodology and therefore lessons learned, the experience, and of course, ultimately towards the end, the outcomes. But I stand to be corrected on the outcomes because, as I said, for the past 8 months, I have not been involved on day-to-day basis on CALOHEA project. I will just use my assumption through the understanding of the intended outcomes of the project. So let me just go one by one. In terms of motivation and aspiration, as I mentioned, it is about comparing, measuring and comparing achievements of learning outcomes in higher education in Asia. And the objective is towards better internationalization. Okay, so from my perspective, the lessons learned, achieving equally acceptable quality standard is important to allow for similar learning outcomes for every university student, regardless where they are. So I think this is an effort that actually started off in the Europe, where they are trying to sort of have mutual recognition of all programs. And I think the main interest or the main objective is to allow students to be mobile and not restricted to their own university. And in order to facilitate such effort, there must be mutual recognition. And I think the extent of movement in universities outside our region are to the point that students can start in one university and can graduate from another university. I think that is the hidden agenda perhaps behind CALOHEA, is to encourage such movement so that students will not only be confined to the study environment of one particular university, but will have experience from the world as they mix, as they enjoy, and as they experience new challenges I think the hypothesis is that this will bring out, or this will nurture a more resilient, agile, forward-looking, creative, and perhaps better citizen from our students. So I think that is what CALOHEA is meant to achieve. So therefore, when we go into the methodology of this project, it is towards achieving that mutual recognition. Okay, so and you can imagine our students able to move from one campus to another. All the new experience and new living and learning environment will even enrich their attributes, their character, and at the end of the day, the quality of the graduates that we produce. So I think this is the motivation, and I feel it is a very noble cause, and we are, I think the team who are in the study are very privileged to be discussing about this, planning about this, and doing methodologies towards this end. So that is the motivation. Okay, so quickly, so therefore I am in full support of the motivation and aspiration, and I feel personally this has to be continued. There are still other things that we can improve, and for that I will cover that towards the end of my presentation. If we look into a bit of detail of the methodology, I think the experience has been overwhelmingly motivating and giving us a lot of challenges and new dimension and approach into things. Even though perhaps these are quite common to the people who do research in higher education, perhaps, but for us, for me and our team as civil engineers, I think there are some eye-opening approaches and methodology, and there's a lot that we can learn towards improving our respective programs. So as I've mentioned, we have three key recognition mechanisms, the terminology used. One is actually to create our own framework for qualification assessment reference. So this is the first part. The second part is to look particularly into the workload measurement as part of the curriculum design, because that is important, because when we would like to find equality between programs, we must make sure that the student workload is also comparable. And finally, in terms of authentic assessment, this is relatively new to many of us. So it is something that I think was very useful, and I will try to dissect lessons learned from each of them. So this is a busy slide. Just ignore the details of it. It is just to show that the team went through a very organized and structured methodology given by our senior partners in the Tuning Institute. And we had diligently followed the methodology. The line one, or recognition mechanism one, is about the qualification framework. Effectively, we did some desk study. We then built up our qualification framework for civil engineering that is usable across all countries that are involved in our program. Then we validated it and revalidated it and improved it until we came up with a final agreeable framework that is being used for subsequent work in the study. So that is basically RM1, and RM2 is looking at the workload where we were exposed and we had to experiment and actually did activities with regards to different tools to help us to come up with the student workload with two objectives. One is to create the culture of student workload in the design and in the operation or the delivery of our learning, as well as to actually have a way or guideline on how we can use workload effectively. And finally, we talk about RM3 or line 3, authentic assessment, as an alternative and a more comprehensive way to do assessment that are more authentic than the usual. So that is what we did. And if we look at each one, these are even further details. I mean, as I said, I will not be able to go into detail, but I hope you can appreciate the amount of engagement that we did, because usually this work is being done by the national body. So I think the team was very honored to be able to go through an exercise where we actually not only reviewed, but we consolidated and we came up with our own framework. So I think that was a very rich experience, and I think at the end of the day, what we find out that even in the area of civil engineering, which is very established in terms, RM is reference mechanism. Okay, is I was just looking at the interaction. It's actually the term used as a category of work. Coming back to national qualification framework, even for civil engineering, we found that there are many gaps in the civil engineering programs within the universities of ASEAN. So that was something that was an eye-opener, because in Malaysia, the civil engineering or the engineering qualification framework is rather established, but yet our neighbors in leading universities, they still are relatively new with even outcome-based education and their qualification framework. Some countries do not have qualification framework, so they are using frameworks from other regions, other countries like ABET, Washington Accord, and others. But I think for Malaysia, for example, we have our own qualification framework, and therefore it is good to acknowledge that there are gaps even in higher education around the areas in the country. Okay, similarities and uniqueness of national frameworks. When we did the comparison, we were able to identify the gaps or the differences. All right, and there are also similarities. And I think if you listen from my colleagues afterwards, the different areas have different gaps. Okay, so to me, this is another lessons learned, which means for countries that are more advanced in qualification framework mindset or approaches in higher education, we also can play our role of mentoring. Because remember, there are about only 2 or 3 universities that are representative of each of the country that is in CALOHEA. There are 100 more universities that are not represented. So I think there are opportunities for us to also coach and mentor many universities within the region for them to come up to a level that is expected from the civil engineering fraternity. Which is OBE, outcome-based education, and based on the national qualification framework. So that's opportunity there for all of us. And then the fact that we have to come up with a clear qualification framework was also an eye-opener. And also the art of mapping. Okay, so I think these are things that we have learned. We have also coached each other for better understanding of outcome-based education, national qualification framework. So this is what was given to us early days, and this was then transformed to actual work. Okay, and just to share with you what we did, we tried to actually design our framework by this approach. The civil engineering group tried to describe how do you describe a good civil engineer? All right, and we use dimensions and sub-dimension. So this was the early version for us to brainstorm. Remember, we had done the comparison already at this point, and we knew what we wanted to achieve. So we had done a narrative of such, and therefore we did this. We did this work. Okay, this is just to explain to you why I make my conclusions in terms of the lessons learned. So the process of building up the framework was a very intensive process, but yet at the end of the day, a very rewarding process. Okay, so therefore we did that, and that is then transformed into detailed explanation for each of the component. Okay, so if you look from here, from learning and development and science and mathematics principles, we then look into the knowledge dimension, skills dimension, and responsibilities dimension. Okay, so we had to, of course, make sure that each of the written narrative are also accessible, because at the end of the day, we need to assess the attainment of the outcomes. So therefore, the description, even though it's typically used to design our program, but at the end of the day, we need to ensure that it is being assessed, delivered, and we need to ensure that the outcomes are all attained. So we knew from the beginning, the choice of words must be as such that it is also measurable. So again, these are the details of our framework. This is the second page. And I think what is very gratifying is that the fact that we are able to describe the outcomes and the attributes that we want in a civil engineer, in the case of our group, in terms of their knowledge, skill, responsibilities dimension, and to also make sure that they are applicable for each of the categories that we have chosen. So it covers the technical dimension. It also covers the personal and individual and character dimension. So with that, I also mentioned about mapping. So the beauty of mapping is that we may need not to reinvent the wheel. So from here, it is just to show that the program of the School of Civil Engineering USM is well mapped to our qualification framework. So this is to show that the relevance are equivalent. And when we do mapping, if we agree to this qualification framework, and if we were to map to other universities' program outcomes, that is going to enable mutual recognition, and that is also going to enable transfer of credits. Okay, so that is how we feel the importance of having qualification framework as part of the higher education ecosystem. Okay, so that is number one. And quickly, I'm running out of time. Again, in terms of the workload, these are more very technical in nature. And some of the lessons learned that I can share with you is that student workload estimation is an excellent way to manage optimal teaching and learning. And I think from our exercise, when we look at other countries, some countries have actually been over, we have actually given over workload to our students. Some, the lecturers feel that they are giving low workload, but the students feel otherwise. And interestingly, there are also the vice versa, where the lecturers feel they are underloading, but the students feel that they are overloaded. So these are some of the nice findings that we have learned. Some countries do not practice student workload. Okay, so this is also interesting, and I think part of the objective is for all universities to ensure fair distribution of workload, and therefore we can ensure the best learning experience from our students. The CALOHEA methodology can help to improve the standard workload calculation typically used in Malaysia for EAC and MQA. So in Malaysia, as you all may have known, we already have a standard way of calculating. And after the work that we did for CALOHEA, I think we can, of course, recalibrate and improve on the way we do things if desired so. And also utilization of diary and logbook was also something that we feel was very good for us to understand students' learning behavior. Sometimes when we teach, we teach from the perspective of the lecturer. But I think the principle of OBE, outcome-based education, we also need to appreciate and look from all perspectives. And I think using diary and logbook has been a good way to do that. Of course, with technology, I think this can be done better. Finally, in terms of authentic assessment, this is a rough idea about it. It is actually a replication of world life activities as much as possible into our daily teaching and learning experience. So, and we actually did some work on this. And I think at the end of the day, we intended to implement authentic assessment in our respective program. And to me, it is relatively new in many civil engineering program owners because we try to bring authentic assessment to our civil engineering program. But as you know, civil engineering programs are real program, physical construction and so on, which should be challenging to be brought to our day-to-day classes. However, seeing the benefits and with technology and with creativity, I think we are able to understand how to bring authentic assessment more effectively and more comprehensively. And I'm sure the team has embarked on this. For AA to be the mainstream assessment method, the teaching and learning approach may need to be transformed with regards to class size and so on. So I think there's a lot of transformation that needs to happen. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just quickly go to the next point of experience. So I will just quickly mention my thoughts of the lessons learned. Early period of project during COVID-19 was done online. Okay, so the project started during COVID and it was very challenging because as you can see from the methodology, we had a lot of work to do to understand, and therefore we had a lot of discussion. So we had a tough time. So to me personally, I think this is also the way for us to appreciate the situation for our students. I think we have overcome that, but now I think we need to also look at the potential of online learning towards future learning for our students, which I think many of us are beginning to forget. Even I also forget how to share just now because I've not taught online for some time. So I think these are again opportunity that we should grab, and I think many universities are trying to ensure that we do not lose touch on online teaching and learning. The varying experience and competency between member universities have been challenging yet rewarding, okay, because I think the gap is quite wide. But again, when we are able to co-coach, it has been most gratifying. And I do hope that our friends have benefited from those who are more experienced, and also for them to be able to coach their friends in other universities in their country. So I think this is also part of CALOHEA's objective for us to continue to nurture each other towards improvement in higher education. Language, again, was a barrier, you know, and I think this will continue to be a barrier for mobility. So I think we have not looked into this into detail, but it is still a challenge for higher education to be globalized. So outcomes, ladies and gentlemen, just to highlight on the precursor to this project, this is our second project that are related, and actually this is actually the design part, all right? So if you can see from my diagram here, the previous project was consulting, profiling, designing. This project is covering learning, evaluating, and enhancing, okay? But to my mind, okay, I'll be a bit critical here. I think we were given the opportunity to have a seamless continuation between the previous project and this project. Okay, and but I think at the end of the day, the outcomes of learning, I think, has not been done satisfactorily. So there is an opportunity perhaps for this study to continue to the next step, where the outcomes of learning, even though the name stated on outcomes, after going through the three qualification framework, the recognition mechanism or RMs, I feel personally that I think we have not even actually fully addressed the dimension of learning in the tuning student-centered learning methodology. So, so therefore, there's room for improvement. So, but when we have not done enough in terms of learning, assessment of learning outcome, I feel we are still short of doing evaluating and enhancing. So to me, a critical assessment of methodology of CALOHEA at the end, we are still short of dimensions in learning, yet to really embark on evaluating of the effectiveness of the design that we did in the previous study and the delivery that we concentrated in CALOHEA, because we did not do sufficiently the outcome assessment, we are not able to evaluate the effectiveness, and therefore the opportunities for enhancement is also curtailed. So therefore, I think there's definitely room for post-CALOHEA project opportunities. So I think maybe for the team who is still in CALOHEA, perhaps we might have a last meeting. So perhaps you can relay my wish so that this project can continue and we can actually complete the student-centered learning framework. And finally, in terms of the title of CALOHEA, Measuring and Comparing Achievements of Learning Outcome, I feel we have not achieved that name. All right, we may have achieved the objective as stated by the 3 recognition mechanism, but because CALOHEA stands for an acronym that is supposed to compare achievement of learning outcome, I would dare to say that at the end, and of course tend to be challenged by my friends, that the word CALOHEA and the meaning of it has yet to be achieved, which again give us opportunity to bid for another project so that CALOHEA can really serve its purpose and the framework of student-centered learning as per shown in the previous diagram can actually be achieved. So ladies and gentlemen, within the time given, I'm sorry that I have to rush the presentation, but those are my personal perspective. In fact, I did not even consult my previous team members. I had to exercise my veto power because I feel that is my view of things on lessons learned. And nevertheless, I would like to say thank you to all my colleagues who has actually helped a lot in ensuring my job as the coordinator then to be, very enjoyable and very meaningful. And I would like to also take this opportunity to apologize for any shortcoming. So with that, sorry for exceeding a bit of time, but I don't know whether we have dialogue or not, Saiful, but I stand to be challenged on my views and of course, welcome any questions. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pass to you back.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Dato', for very insightful sharing of your experience as a former coordinators. I really love it how you put it in terms of narrative, and the storyline was very impactful. I think there's something that we learned from the way when the Sifu is talking. All right. I think maybe it's good if we can put the Q&A at the end, so that we can see the overall views from the three presenters first. Then we will allocate about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for Q&A if anything that you would like to clarify with any of the speakers. All right. So without further ado, I would like to invite the next speaker from Teacher Education, Professor Hazri, sharing his thoughts based on the experience and observation that he has, for the past 3 years. So please welcome Prof. Hazri.
Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, my friends, Prof. Datuk Farhan, nice view from your Vice Chancellor room. And I would like to thanks as well to Dr. Saiful for your effort in providing this platform for us to sharing and reflecting what has been done throughout this project that really provide us a lot of lessons in my personal experience. And also, I believe this also came up from our colleagues as well that involved with this project. After being have some very brief discussion with some of our colleagues under the teacher education program. Also, some friends that involved in this project from numbers of country or in the, institution in the ASEAN countries. So I come to the conclusion for today presentation to sharing the insights from teacher education group regarding what we did learn, okay, from this project. So let me share. What is it? Let me share. Sharing. Let me share. Window. Okay, where is it? Lesson learned. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me share. So, representing teacher education group. Okay. To provide our insight regarding lesson learned from the CALOHEA project in enhancing internationalization and recognition of higher education degrees, especially at the ASEAN region, okay, across the different institutions with different contexts, with different background, and with different policy and practice. So I believe that Prof. Dr. Farhan already provided a very clear detail of the mechanisms, purpose, and information regarding the way how we went through all the process and mechanisms that in my personal perspective, is very rigor to reach
Azri,
the outcome of the
Azri, can you put on slideshow?
I already sharing it.
Can you put on the slideshow?
Slideshow, sorry.
Slideshow, because we can see a
Okay.
slide right now. All right.
Is it okay? Okay. So is it okay now?
Still on your slide, PowerPoint, not really slideshow. I'm not really sure about this. Can you see the slideshow at this moment?
No, still slide, still not slideshow.
Let me share again.
Okay, share again.
Something wrong.
Maybe entire screen. You can choose entire screen.
Yeah.
That will be better.
Ni dah lama tak ngajar online lah ni.
Itulah, that's a problem with physical. Okay, let me share. Okay, sharing.
Entire screen.
Optimize the motion videos. Okay. Windows. Is it okay now?
Maybe you can click
okay now?
on slideshow. Just
Yeah,
click
I already in my desktop. I can see the slideshow now, and I am the slideshow mode now. Is it okay?
Never mind. You just continue. Because we cannot see your. Maybe slideshow now.
Okay. This is slideshow now. The Saiful. Is it okay now?
We can see your slide.
Okay, great. Okay, the key point here that I going to focus, and I will elaborate further regarding the various lesson that we learned from this project. I mean, is focusing on how this project, I mean, especially in the context of teacher education program across the institution at the ASEAN region, is towards bridging the gap and unifying differences in internationalization of higher education. Okay, see, I think this is the impact and lesson and benefit that I believe after discussion with some of my colleagues and also members that involved in this project, we found that this is the most important aspect that we from teacher education learn from this project. Okay.
Razri,
So
sorry. Now
yeah.
we cannot see your slide. Maybe you unshare just now. Maybe can you
Now?
share again? No, we cannot see anything.
What is the problem with my laptop?
I believe
Okay.
others also cannot see the slide. Am I right?
Okay. Now I'm sharing again. Is it okay now?
Now better.
Better. Great. So just focusing on the overarching themes that we derive my presentation, focusing on the lesson learned from this project. That the most important key point here is how this project bridging the gap and unifying differences in internationalization of higher education. I believe Prof. Dr. Farhan already explained and provided a very details ideas and information about how this project has been done, lesson specifically related to the so-called the recognition mechanism that we have went through the very rigor process, okay, and put a lot of effort to ensure that it's really authentic mechanism that can be applied practically in other different contexts of uh, the connection in terms of different academic programs for the purpose of uh, student mobility and exchange program and so on. So I think this is the very values lesson that we learn from this project. Okay, so move to the benefit. I think all the members knows how this intention of the project that will provide benefit to various stakeholders, including the students, the faculties, the institution as well, and the academic staff, and especially the Southeast Asian region in terms of addressing gap and issue related to enhance the efforts and practice of internationalization, especially related to academic program. I just recap because Prof. Farhan already provide all details, okay, during his presentation. This is the three recognition mechanism focusing on the framework, on the subject specific qualification and assessment reference from framework with various domains that we need to be consensus agreed and have a very generic dimension that will addressing all the differences and gap between the different institutions from the different countries at the regional level. So as been explained by Prof. Farhan, how we came up with the framework of the specific subject on these three areas, which are the engineering education, teacher education, and medical education. And the second mechanism is related to the student workload. The way how we calculate the student workload, how we perceive the student workload, and how we also engage actively with students to get their views on the student workload. And the very interesting lesson that we learned from this mechanism process, that how our perception or assumption to make it easy, regarding the difference between what we perceive compared to what student perceive on the student workload is different. So this is something that really spark our mind and perspective, and this mechanism provide us tools to harmonize between these differences between our views and the student views in addressing the student workload. And the last mechanism is related to assessment, that I think this is really interesting, and towards the practice of authentic assessment. Okay, this the whole methodology have been touched in detail by Prof. Dr. Farhan just now. I just want to recap it, and I believe Prof. Saipul will further elaborate the rigor methodology of this dimension to produce the qualification reference framework, right? That the so-called standardization, as same what been practiced in the national level or European country. I mean, to come up with the European quality frameworks in our context. So we have our own national quality framework, referring to the authority body, which is a Nation Qualification Agency. So yeah, we're referring to the National International Document Analysis related to the what can be defined as quality and dimension that important and crucial in relation to the curriculum development of teacher education. And then we consult as well with various stakeholders, all the institutions in different countries consult with various stakeholders, including at the national levels, the ministry, the education department, student employers as well. And we also have consultation with academic colleagues and experts related to teacher education. And then we also have consolidated with in our events that provided in this platform with all others SGA teams of teacher education of ASEAN countries within the CALOHEA event workshop and so on, to synthesizing based on the latest input and feedback. Then keep revise the framework till we reach at the level of saturation and agree this is generic that can harmonize and filling the gap of the different contexts and background, practice and policy of the different institutions and countries. So derived from this, all of this process, I believe this is a very rigorous process. We sometimes we feel quite hectic, to to have to put a lot of effort in preparing many documents, reports, ideas, discuss, brainstorming, and so on to come up with very generic and derived from the very robust and rigorous process. So now, based on all this process that we experience from the CALOHEA project, so I would like to share my insights, right? Not only my personal insight or views, also I engage with some friends, as I told just now, to shows, right, numbers of lesson that we learn or that we feel provide an impactful benefits to our practice and as well policies as well, in terms of enhancing of our effort for the internationalization of higher education, especially in the regional context. Okay, the first is how this project provide the so-called the standardization and alignment of the learning outcome. Prof. Farhan has touched this a little bit in his presentation, and I would like to enhance it further. This very important effort of aligning learning outcomes across institutions and countries at the ASEAN level. Okay, so they have a reason. We learned that they have a very several important reason for doing this process. First, that we believe this will provide. We learn that this will provide us the ideas and methodologies and tools to ensure the consistency. I mean, in terms of what the similar that we can working together to enhance our collaboration and cooperation related to internationalization process. It ensures that students, regardless where they study, either in Thailand, in Indonesia, or in other countries, okay, achieve a similar level of knowledge, skills, and competency. This is have been done through the process that we experience to come up with the general frameworks of the student learning outcome. Okay, and this consistency is vital for maintaining the quality and integrity of educational programs at the global level, and especially at the regional level. And this also addressing issues of comparability, okay, with the standardized learning outcomes that we derive from the framework. Degrees and qualification can be compared more easily across borders. So this make us more easy, to recognize other academic program for other countries, especially in addressing issues and gap for the purpose of student mobility or student exchange program between the institution and between the country. And this comparability is essential for students who wish to transfer credit, continue their education in another country, or seek employment internationally. And as I mentioned just now, aligned learning outcomes also really support the mobility of students and across the region, because we can compare it. It's comparable, and we have a tools, we have a framework to compare the curriculum and recognize it, in ensure that it can be recognized in the process of enhancing of the mobility of the student in the academic program between the institution and the countries. And the last but not least is related to quality assurance as well. Okay, it's help us. In my view, is help us to setting a clear expectation for the educational quality and outcomes. All right. Different institution, different standard of institution, different quality that been consolidated, and then this assists us to recognize and based on this standard framework that tie our and provide our similar expectation on that kind of recognition. And it also provide a very clear benchmark related to recognition and collaboration. And this had been done by a very transparent process regarding the frameworks. We consolidate, we debate, we discuss, and so on. So the standardization and alignment of this learning outcome, we believe, is fundamentals for ensuring the consistency, comparability, and quality of in education across institution and country. Then this mechanism is provide us a very meaningful understanding how we could collaborate to addressing all the gaps and harmonize the difference between the institution in addressing the issue of internationalization between the different contexts and countries. Okay, and then why stop sharing? Still can see my slide, Prof. Dr.
Yes.
Saiful and others.
Yes, we can.
And then
Yes, we can.
and then the other lesson related as well for my first point, and how this mechanism and the methodology train us and teach us, all right, in terms of improving the transparency and the quality of assurance, clear and measurable learning outcomes that we can be adapted, how we measure in terms of accountability, and how we align this with the needs of the different policies and context of internationalization purpose across the countries. Okay, and it's also big trust among the institution, right? So, for instance, having this kind of mechanism and methodology and very clear framework that derive from the consensus of the various parties across the countries and institutions with different contexts and policies, that will build trust, in the process of recognize the academic program for the internationalization purpose. Okay, and next is for sure, I think it's really enhanced the collaboration and networking among us and between the institution to come together and discuss together, debate together, and also exchange of best practices among us. A lot of things that we learn from this project related to best practice in other countries that we can adapt or adopt in our context. This is very interesting, especially in terms of how the some institution, addressing the issues of student workloads, how they interpret it based on their policy context, and also in terms of how they practice the quantitative assessment. A lot of very interesting and creative practice that been shared by our colleagues via this CALOHEA platform. And then it also enhanced networking among us. So, for instance, in teacher education, we do have further collaboration with numbers of institutions related to this CALOHEA project. For instance, with University in Thailand and University in Indonesia as well. Okay, and hopefully in future we accelerate further our collaboration that derive from this project. Okay, and next, I still have time to decipher. How much time left for me?
2 more minutes.
10 more minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this project also, for my views, also related to capacity buildings, sharing the experience, sharing the best practice, provide ideas and so on, is really contribute and benefit other institutions as well. And we also learn from others as well, right? Regardless their level of institution or what, we learn a lot from others. Then this contribute to the process of capacity buildings and the professional development in our context. So, for instance, in the process of our curriculum review, we embedded or integrated some of ideas and mechanisms in doing our curriculum reviews for our teacher education program. So next lesson we learn a lot as well related to process of policy development and advocacy at the institutional level and also at the national levels, how this can influence on policy development. I think this has been done a lot by Dr. Saiful because he's always active, engaged with the ministry level, and also Prof. Farhan as well, I believe. And at my level, so when I have opportunities to involve with committee related to some specific policy in academic matters in higher education level. So we integrate, okay, and this project provided valuable insight that guided policy development at both institutional and national levels. And it highlight the recommendation and methodology that we can apply in develop or progress our internationalization policy at the institutional level. And how as well this contribute teach us a lesson in terms of advocacy of policy for standardized learning outcomes. Need to bring various parties that involved with these matters to come up with the very rigor and robust process to reach at the standardized learning outcomes that agreed by all parties that involved in the programs. Okay, then next, yeah, for sure, even though we are at a regional level, we have a lot of differences in terms of cultural background and so on. And this also involve the so-called inclusivity in terms of developing the policies, ideas, and frameworks towards reaching the consensus and generic frameworks that can cater the needs of different institutions and countries at the general level. Yeah, for sure. We also been asked to provide a report that also addressing issues of sustainability and schedule of the project. Yeah, for sure. It's the way how this project been done and the output as well. It's really contribute and emphasize. The issue of sustainable practices. Okay. There's a specific measure in practice to ensure sustainability of the project, how we apply, adapt, or adopt the tools and mechanism from this project in enhancing the quality of our program as well, and enhancing the policy and practice of our effort on internationalization. And yeah, in terms of the scalability, a lot of critical lesson been learned from this project that impact the institution and stakeholders as well. Okay. Okay. This project, in terms how it been designed, in terms of mechanism, the methodologies, and also tools that we use, is practical and scalable, and allowing us at the level of institution to adopt and adapt them to our specific context. So this is something that we learn a lot from this project. And and last but not least, the feedbacks and continuous improvement we obtain from our colleagues from different contexts, from different institutions, from different countries, in practice, the way how we need to continuously improvise our practice and policy when we have guided by these clear tools and mechanism. So this is 8 main point that addressing the importance, the main points of bridging the gaps and unifying differences in internationalization of higher education through this CALOHEA project, especially in the context of teacher education program. The lesson learned from this project is really inspired and motivated us, and benefited us in terms of to have very clear mechanism and practically adapted in our practice and policy at the institutional level, specifically. So the CALOHEA projects have provided valuable lesson on how to enhance the internationalization and recognition of higher education degrees through standardized learning outcome, improve transparency and collaborative effort. And I believe this insight can guide future initiative aimed at strengthening higher education system globally. This is something important that we need to make is something that take home, that we can consider and adopt in our existing practice and policy. So by then, I thanks again to Dr. Saiful and all colleagues, and also especially members from University of Groningen, and also the Erasmus program as well, and AUN, ASEAN Industry Network, that really provided a good and efficient, and facilitating us in have a good experience and learn a lot of lessons from these projects. So that's all from me, Prof. Dr. Saiful. So I think a lot of things that will be shared by Dr. Saiful after this. Thanks, Dr. Saiful.
All right. Thank you so much, Hazri, for sharing your insights and views from the group perspective as well as personal perspective. Now, I think it's my turn to share my points of view as a coordinator for SAG Medicine CALOHEA Project. Then allow me to share my slides. Right. Right, before I start, can you see my PowerPoints at this moment?
Clear.
Yes. Yes. All right. So, okay, thank you so much for Dr. Farhan as well as for Hazri for sharing your opinions, thoughts, and insights on your experience related to CALOHEA project. Maybe my one, I'm going to put it into 10 key lessons that I personally learned, as well as from my observations, looking at my counterparts from other countries. Then hopefully the key lessons would be somehow reflecting the aim of CALOHEA, which is to contribute to internalizations of higher education institutions and improving recognition of higher education degrees across the ASEAN at least, but the aim is to make it global, right? And this is just something that I would like to highlight. As mentioned by both speakers, we are very honored to be part of this big group, and we learned relentlessly from everyone's in the groups, either cross subjects or maybe within the subjects. And I think we did a great efforts to ensure that all the initiatives that we initiated from this project will benefits at least to a certain point for every country to bring back and to improve the way they do in their own respective institutions at least. All right, so just to recap something that if you want to know more about RM1, RM2, RM3, actually we did discuss that in the previous webinars. So I hope that if you want to know more about what is RM1, RM2, 3 with the examples, and then in detailed descriptions and narrative of each, you can always look at the CDAE YouTube, and then you can have a deep dive insights into all these recognition mechanisms from different aspects, right? So now I'm going to focus on the 10 key lessons learned from the CALOHEA project, and most of the key lessons basically biased from my observations, but hopefully I managed to infuse certain things that I observed from the group efforts toward achieving the general aims of CALOHEA project. All right. So the first lesson will be so obvious because I think this is about student workload. And what I can observe is that the holistic understanding of student workload, I think is a very interesting, because previously from my own experience, we always look at one dimension. But when we're looking at the different dimensions of student workload, we realize that actually there are a lot more ways actually to see how the students work in a daily basis. And if you can see from this, this diagram is obviously we only see the contact hours previously, but actually deep dive into the iceberg, there are a lot more students have done. And through those estimations, the surveys for the student workload, the diaries and logbook that we conducted with our students, and through the focus group discussion that we explore the experience, really makes us feeling that, oh, what are we doing, right? What are we doing? And in fact, there are a lot more things we can do better. All right, you can do better and improving. As was mentioned by Dato' Farhan just now, it's quite interesting to see that as academic, we think we give less workload to the students. But actually, looking at these three tools, which is from quantitative to qualitative data, consistently we saw that actually students are very much loaded with the so many tasks until they have to sacrifice certain the social time, the family times, just for the sake of academic load. I think this is something that the insight that we believe that if we are looking for better learning experience, better learning attainment, student workload is something that we need to revisit, because from one lens, I believe that we are not going to get the entire holistic understanding of student workload. I think the key points for the first lesson is we need to see student workload from different perspectives, right? So I think this is important, because different perspective through different tools will be able to offer a full spectrum of student experience that will be reflecting on their workload, and hopefully the appropriate workload will be able to give enough time, sufficient time for them to grow and to achieve the learning outcomes. Sometimes, if we give more than what the students can do, it will impact the outcomes of the learning outcomes. I think this is something that the first lesson that I learned and we learned together, and being echoed by the two speakers previously. All right. So the second lesson will be related to the reflection and continuous improvement on the workload, the way we see competency, and the way we assess the students. Because to foster a culture of ongoing improvement through, through continuous reflection on actions and in action is something that we need to do more, actually. Because by doing this, we can see and we can somehow help ourselves to identify the aspects that need to be adjusted, just to ensure that the whole curriculum remains relevant, effective, and responsive to the needs of the current situation. I think the whole exercise, we can see that we are actually looking at what we are doing right now and what will be the gaps that we need to close up, to make it the gaps closer, and then to achieve what we intended to achieve maybe now and in the future. I think continuous reflections and improvement is something that learn from the whole process of CALOHEA, because I believe that not only the coordinators and the lead institutions members, but everyone in the CALOHEA, regardless where they are in the education settings, actually we reflect a lot. And throughout the process, we improve our understandings as well as the way we are looking at higher education through the whole process. And specifically related to student workload, the competency framework that we develop, as well as the assessment that allow the students to perform and to demonstrate their ability in the real world context. I think it is a very very important lesson that we learned through CALOHEA, and I think this is something that we need to do more in the future to improve our curriculums, designs, as well as learning experience of our students. All right, so there's a lesson 2. Now let's go to the lesson 3. What will be the lesson 3? Is about student empowerment. I think there's something that Prof. Farhan mentioned, that student-centered learning, but actually it's more than student-centered learning. It's student empowerment in the process of measuring their workloads and assessing their competency, so that whatever we assess them is relevant to their future careers. And this active role in their educations is something that they are involved from the beginning. I think there is something that when we engage students through FGD, through discussion, through the survey, we really found that they are actually having a lot of secret that they are not openly tell us what makes them learn better. But when we engage them, we ask them, and then we explore the experience. There you go. There are a lot of things actually. Oh, we have a lot of assumption, and our assumption is not supported with the experience that the students actually had for during their learnings. I think this is something that we need to do more, especially in empowering students, and students become part of the curriculum, and the students as a partner in the curriculum, especially related to competency and their student workloads. All right, so I think this is something that we need to do more, so that we can do better in our, in our curriculums, so that the design is fitting and actively promoting the learning attainment among them. All right, so this is a lesson 3. Lesson 4. Faculty and institution support. This is something that when we do all this CALOHEA, definitely we need to engage faculty, we need to get support from the institutions, especially when it comes to RM3, when we are trying to install the authentic assessment into the current curriculum, in which we need to ensure our faculty having the same understanding, having a good, experience in what it means by workload, what is mean by authentic assessment, and what it means by competency-based curriculum. I think this is something that we are learning so much when we engage the faculty, and when we engage to the institution to support the changes that we are trying to make. That will be something depending on the condition. All right, I think the most important is we need to train our faculty. The training must be objective and experiential, so that they can appreciate what is the importance of knowing student workloads, and then why competency is musting for us to to develop properly, to have a clear understanding what competency the student have to achieve at the end of the programs, and what sort of authentic assessment we can use to measure the learning outcomes in the real world settings. I think this is something really important that that I personally learned throughout the CALOHEA, especially when we are trying to put what we have obtained from the CALOHEA process into the practice, trying to change the current practice that has been done for many years. All right. So the success of implementation is really very much depending on how well we train our faculty and how well the institution supporting to these all good changes, right? So there's a lesson number 4. And lesson number 5, I think these are the most important things that for me, somehow it refocus the way that I see competency. And for your information, when we develop the competency framework, we develop according to the framework. I think if you can still remember, Dr. Farhan mentioned about the table, the knowledge, skill, and responsibility. And when we relate to our context, actually I can put like this, you know. For example, let's say for the medical doctors, for example, because I'm from the medicine, actually yes, from year 1, year 2, usually we put them knowledge, you know. So why do we put them? Why we teach them the knowledge? Because we want them to demonstrate the understanding of the basic fundamental medical and clinical sciences for them to perform the expected responsibility as future doctors. So see, when we put in this perspective, it's very clear to us that anything that is relevant, applicable, and useful to promote their career progress and growth as a junior doctors, we must embark on this. And it must be put in authentic manners. And similarly to the skills, and the most important, I think the most important lesson that I learned is about responsibility. Usually, we used to put a knowledge, skill, and attitude. But through CALOHEA, it makes me feel that, oh, I think responsibility is much better than attitude whatsoever. Because when put the responsibility, whatever we teach the students, either knowledge or skills, we tap into what is going to be useful for the skill and knowledge for them to carry out their responsibility as a junior doctor later on. So I think there's a very clear picture, and we know what to do, and we know actually how to put things in a good context, because authentic assessment will play a lot of roles here to ensure that they can demonstrate in front of us and the experts in the medicines, so that they can portray they have done a good responsibility as a future doctors, so that we can verify them and we pass them with confidence. I think it is something that I learned a lot from CALOHEA, which is competence-based curriculum from different perspective, which is knowledge, skill, and responsibility. Right. So the next lesson that I learned personally is about authentic assessment. Previously, yeah, even though in medical education we used to do authentic assessment, but somehow the CALOHEA really give us a fresh views on how we put the definition around the authentic assessment in our context. For example, here, most of the methods that will be able to align the measurements of learning outcomes to the real world task and responsibility that will be authentic. So for example, let's say if you are talking about knowledge. So what sort of knowledge, what sort of methods that authentic enough to measure the knowledge in real world context? It means that whatever tools we use, they need to be able to allow the students to apply the knowledge in the real life context. And if, for example, the skills, we need to make sure that the methods of assessment will allow the students to demonstrate skill in the real life context. And the most important part is about the responsibility, which somehow we did it in our practice, but we don't realize it. Actually, we are allowing the students to perform their the responsibility as expected as a junior doctors within the real life context. So I think this is something that strengthened our practices and make us more alert and aware that we are actually doing it. But before this, we do not know that it is. Because when we do focus group discussion, and we realize that not only focus group discussion, actually even for diaries, we realize that the different learning modality have a different effects and influence on student workload. Therefore, I think it's very important for us to understand how much student load will be imposed by the learning modalities that we introduce the students, so that we need to ensure adequate and enough time for the student to spend through that learning modalities for them to grow and develop the expected learning outcomes. I think there is something that very important. Somehow, if you are no in USM, if you are filling up BPK, for example, somehow we take it so lightly. Because we think, okay, doesn't matter, whatever you put in the teaching and learning methodology, it won't affect anything. But actually, from the focus group and diaries, actually it is matter, because different learning modalities have a different effects on the student workload. I think this is a very important message. Please take note on this for us to improve the way we think, the way we put the teaching learning, and how that will influence the student workload. So the workloads, if inappropriate, will affect the attainment of the learning outcomes, right? So lesson 8, before, because I think my time is running out already. All right, motivation and engagement. I think whatever we do, if we involve the student in the learning process, in the in the assessment process, that will motivate them and will have more engagement, especially when we do a focus group discussion. This is something that they highlighted. They want to be part of the curriculum. They want to be co-creator of of the learning content, as well as the learning process in between, for them to achieve the learning outcome expected from them. And then lesson 9 is basically, I noticed that, I'm not really sure whether other notice or not, but I noticed that individual differences in workload competency perception, either from academics or students. So they have a different views on what is workload and competency. I think this is where we come to certain agreement into our competency framework, what it meant by student workload, and what is actually authentic assessment. I believe the individual differences might be guided into a more congruent understanding, so that they can talk to each other in the same language when we discuss about student workload, competency, and authentic assessment. All right. So I think there's something that we need to recognize and to do something to accommodate the individual differences in this context. All right, in this context. And the final lesson for me is the recognitions of qualification. All right. So I think I would like to give more a little bit more details what I learned about recognition of qualifications, especially in ensuring the qualification awarded are recognized and valued by both locally and internationally. And I tried to put in the context as I think published by UNESCO under Education 2030, how our CALOHEA actually jive well with the global conventions on the recognition of qualification concerning higher education. So I'm going to dive a little bit more about this, just for your informations and some new knowledge about what is this. All right. So basically, in this global convention, there are 4 key utilities that I learned from CALOHEA that may be something that we might want to consider when we are talking about recognizing qualification. All right. So the first thing I think, as we mentioned clearly in title, is about comparability. I think comparable, CALOHEA is about comparable of learning. Yes, comparability is one of the key utilities to ensure the qualification from different educational systems can be assessed as equivalent. Competency, comparable student workload, comparable the way we assess our student authentically. That is something that will facilitate the comparability between different qualifications. I think there is one key utility. The second one is about the compatibility. So what it meant by compatibility in this context is basically the extent to which qualification from different education system can fit into each other's framework. That's why, we are cross-ref. During the process, CALOHEA, actually we cross-ref the framework. For example, from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from Philippines, and from Thailand, we try to merge and coming out with a kind of global competency for ASEAN, because we want to ensure that the compatibility, and we do the mapping as well. The mapping process also ensure the compatibility between different programs. and qualification framework. All right, so there's compatibility, and the third one is about transferability. This is something that is very important for the qualification and credit transfer to be moved and accepted across different education institutions or employment sectors. This is where the student workload will reflect the credit. You know, the authentic assessment reflects the assessment. Competency, how that competency will be accepted and can be moved across the different education institutions. I think this is something that really powerful through that we learn from CALOHEA in terms of transferability. And the last but not least is very much related to the assessment, the variability of the qualification, the assurance that qualifications are authentic, credible, and can be confirmed through reliable and transparent process. I think these are the 4 key utilities that I learned from CALOHEA, which is very important and very much aligned with the 8 universal principles of recognition for qualification as stated by the Global Convention in 2019. And if I put it in a proper way, actually it's mapped very well. You know, comparability, compatibility, transfer, verifiability through all these 8 universal principles that has been put in the practical guide for the global conventions toward recognition of qualification. I think you know, there's something that for everyone to know that we are doing something that's related to the education's 2030 that allow and promote cross recognitions and to have be recognized, compatible, transferable, and verifiable. All right. And the key challenges, this is something from my perspective. What are the key challenges to recognition of qualification? I think we learn from CALOHEA, diverse education system, definitely. No, we have a different education system. That is very challenging. And implementation barriers also challenging depending on which country, which institution. Sometimes you get good support, yes, but sometimes there is resistance and very challenging to handle. And to bring the change is not easy. All right, the technology disparity also one of the factors that I think from the CALOHEA experience will might hinder from moving forward, but I think the challenges can be done together. And cultural and linguistic differences, I think Prahazri mentioned about the cultural and linguistic aspect just now. That's a key challenges. But the key opportunity is if we could do this, it enhances the mobility, is enhance the global collaboration, at least for the ASEAN region, and will benefit the society as well as economy of the country. And then the quality assurance can be somehow not say standardized, but harmonized, that we can cross-ref and do more transfer credit across the different education system. And the suggestion that I can think at this moment, looking at the CALOHEA experience, I think CALOHEA itself is capacity building. I think there is a very good way of showcasing that we can do something to improve all these higher education practices. The technological solution, I think there is something that Dr. Farhan mentioned in the earlier part. You know, we cannot remove the online or learning and teaching. I think we need to embark on that and celebrate and embrace and to enhance the way we use it for betterment of higher education. Policy harmonization has been mentioned by Prahazri just now. I totally agree with that. And stakeholder engagement, that what we learn from CALOHEA. We engage different stakeholders. We can see that from the flow chart that Dato' Farhan showed us to just now. I think you can see how many, there's a lot of engagement with so many stakeholders from the root until to the top. All right, so I think this is something really, really good that we can learn from CALOHEA. In summary, so this is our pictures. The Tazwani there, Prahazri behind, Dato' Farhan, and I'm also over there. But there is a memory that we have, and this 10 lesson that I have learned so much from the CALOHEA. And in summary, I think the key things that I would like to summarize in 4 key summaries: the comprehensive education approach, empowerment and support that we need to put on authenticity, and the competency must be hand in hand, and recognition and individualizations in terms of the workload must be considered. All right, so I think that's all from my side. Thank you so much for listening. Now I think let's take for Q&A if you have anything. All right, so yes, it's open for Q&A. Anyone who would like to ask any question? Otherwise, I will read from maybe let's take a few minutes for Q&A. All right, so let's start with, already profile, Dato' Farhan already answered that one. Code standardization led to, okay, that is already answered over there. Thank you, Dato' Farhan. How do you foresee we convene the policymaker to improve diplomacy on higher education within ASEAN Europe, given the advisory to diplomatic changes appear rather difficult to penetrate? This is the purpose of mature education. I think, Dato' Farhan, thank you so much for providing all the answers. Or maybe, anything that you like to say it out, Dato' Farhan. Go on. Any of the questions?
No, I was just listening and try to answer some of the question. No, indeed, there are challenges, but I thank you for the questions. But at the end of the day, I think we are looking at different ways of improving our collaboration and allowing students to be mobile. And I think there have been a lot of experiment around or practices around, but I think we have been quite rigid in the way we look at mutual recognition. I think we have been looking mainly towards syllabus rather than learning outcomes. So with CALOHEA, I think we are learning to compare programs in terms of its compatibility, in terms of outcomes, which is more acceptable, I feel. And if this can work, I think it would be great. So students can actually have different syllabus or slightly varying content, but at the end of the day, they are equipped in terms of outcome. But of course, if you talk about professional technicalities, we have to make sure that the content are also aligned. So yeah, there are more challenges, but again, I think this is an attempt to standardize that. So maybe as a summarized response to all the questions that were posted as part of the chat, Saiful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Maybe Fazli, you would like to say something on the policy? Because I think you are involved a lot with policy making previously when you were, as director of IPPTN. So would you like to say something, Fazli?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Saiful. In my points, that some of my points have been similar with what been, explained by Dr. Saiful as well, and I also echoing what been explained by Prof. Farhan. But I interested in terms of one question, I think from the participant, Jason or what, in terms of how we, in terms of the diplomatic power of soft power in engaging with the stakeholders, especially in some context that already have the existing standard or framework that that already regulated us. But I agree that the process of policy advocacy, need to begin at our level before we can convince the macro policies in addressing the issue of these recognition matters. And the other point of views that I think also importance to be addressed is regarding the standardization and alignment of learning outcomes. Yeah, I explained in the context of why we need the so-called of standardization, but this standard framework or whatever standard recognition is just guidelines and then to harmonize the gap and differences between different contexts. That's why I really admire this project really address in terms of the gap and try to unifying and harmonizing the differences between different contexts in addressing issues of recognition of in the context of international efforts. So these are the things that we learn a lot from the project.
All
That's
right.
all from me, Dr.
All right.
Skipper.
Thank you, Professor. I saw Pro Alfredo here. Yes, I saw.
Yeah.
I think, Prof. Alfredo, are you there? Are you with us? Maybe it's good to listen from our, just to you know, just to tell everyone, Alfredo is our facilitator and mentor from Europe. Prof. Alfredo, would you like to say or comment anything from your own experience involving in CALOHEA project? Prof. Alfredo, are you there? Maybe Prof. Alfredo is away from us for a while. Okay, never mind. All right. So anyone, you know, I just because it should be two ways of discussion. Anyone would like to comment and would like to put your thoughts so that we can listen to what you think, what your views, or maybe what's actually you have understood from what we presented from Dr. Farhan, from Hazri, and myself just now. So anyone would like to say something? Go ahead. All right. So how realistic is the recognition of qualifications in ASEAN, since there are only 8 professions drafted into the ASEAN Mutual Recognition Agreement? So yes, Hazri, this is your area actually. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, heuristic is the recognition of qualification, right? Yeah. In this, this is what I just sparked my mind, Johnson's on Christian regarding the realistic approach. You know, in terms of recognition, we have very different contexts and different levels of standards, and also different level of developments and advancement of higher education context. But this is among the ideas and mechanism that we can propose, you know, to harmonize all the differences and to get consensus, and not really to address everything, all issues regarding the recognition, to reach at the very solid agreement, but the process of reaching the consensus, I think, is more important, with the very rigor and robust methodology and very authentic process that we learn from this CALOHEA, that I believe can be adapted and applied or embedded in the existing practice and mechanism that we use in our different contexts.
Can I add? Thanks, Prof. Can I add?
Yeah.
Yes,
I think,
go ahead, Dato'.
the harmonization that we did for all of us, the 3 of us, when we look at almost 8 to 10 countries qualification framework, I think that is again an effort of harmonizing and trying to agree to the expected outcomes in terms of knowledge, skills, and responsibilities. So I think that has harmonized a very diversified higher education culture, even the local culture, local expectation, and stakeholder expectation. So that is one thing. But I think the more important thing is that this is voluntarism. You know, in terms of CALOHEA, it is still a voluntarism effort. And when we were able to map it, that's why I stated one learning outcome is, or one learning lessons learned is the beauty of mapping, which I think will allow less rigidity and allow some form of flexibility despite having a common qualification framework. So with that mapping, we are able to ensure you may have your own identity as a nation or as a university, but yet you are not astray from the overall framework that we want in terms of learning outcomes and educational outcomes. So I guess that is key to me. And when we cascade down the mapping in terms of what we call constructive alignment, so therefore the education system universally are actually within one similar framework. So with some variation here and there, but the essence of the student attributes may be common, and through harmonization and mapping, I think that the whole world can be sort of being put into the same framework that will allow mutual recognition and so on. So perhaps that could be a way to address this. And of course, we must ask our friends who are newer in the OBE exercise, for example, or being in a form of a qualification framework, how they see the experience has been. So that could be again a post project assessment that CALOHEA can take up. Those are my views to the question. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I add some
Yes.
just a little
Yes, go ahead.
points that I put. Yeah. Actually, we experience the difficulties and challenges in terms of how to mapping and harmonize different perspective towards the same issues related to to these differences. Yeah. It's very difficult even in the regional context. I believe also even in our national level as well is very to get a very similar and consensus ideas about how we define the best for the students in terms of their competencies and other skills and other knowledge, and towards that effort of producing a quality program, even though between UPM and ASEAN. Because Ministry as the ivory tower, they have the so-called of different paradigms or how they define and their looks, views, and these particular matters and so on. This, what I want to emphasize here is the mechanism and methodologies that been produced from this project that can inform us and enlighten us to find a way how to addressing all the gaps and differences to reach at the consensus and getting more efficient perspective and consensus regarding the recognition of the programs. That's all.
All right.
Saiful?
So thank you. And in fact, just to share my own experience from medicine group, even though we are in the medical fraternity, but every system have their own way of defining their competencies. But at the end of the day, CALOHEA has demonstrated to us that we can do if we are together. So, we can do if we are together. And even though, as Professor mentioned, there are a lot of challenges to come together, to get consensus, and to understand each other. The most important is to understand each other first. When we are looking at different competency framework from different educational system. But the bottom line is when we follow a proper mechanisms, proper methodology and process, that will somehow lead to the mutual agreements to recognize our qualification, even though we are from different educational system. That's why one of the things that we were taught is about the specific competency and generic competency. Generic is something that we share together, but specific maybe is unique to your institutions, unique to your country, or maybe unique to your educational system, depend. So through all this concept, actually, if you ask me how realistic is a recognition of globalization. I think it is realistic because we have the mechanism now. We have the mechanism, and we also have, I purposely shared just now the global conventions of recognition of qualification just now. We have the documents to refer, and it's just a matter of to sit down, to be together, just like CALOHEA, and to make efforts to harmonize our recognitions of qualification through competency-based, proper credit reflecting the student workload, and a proper assessment that we can trust each other, right? So I think this is something that from my points of view, maybe it's already 4:45. I do not want to drag the discussion anymore. You can always, you can always engage us outside this webinar, but maybe if I could allow one burning question or comment from anyone from this, from this session, you would like to share something that is very crucially important that you think you must say before we go off. Anyone? All right, so silence means we agree to agree. All right, all right. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for for joining us and then interacting us through the chat board. And thank you to Dato' Farhan, Pro Hazri, and all the members who come over here for over 2 hours, listening and sharing as well as asking for clarification. And we hope that this kind of initiative, efforts, and sharing of practices will be, will be continued, and hopefully that will be something that we can, we can promote a better higher education for the future generations, right? So I think that's all. Thank you so much, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Don't forget those who are in USM to click the link, and then
Photo session.
Oh, photo session. Yes. Sorry. Forgot because we want to go back very, very soon. Yes. So we are going to have a photo session. Can you just switch on your camera if possible? If your camera is functioning, then please switch on. Otherwise, you can keep it as, as a switch off. All right. Oh, all right. So, okay. So, anyone else like to show your face? My camera is not working, so I cannot show my face. Anyone else like to turn off your videos? All right, so I'm going to take the picture now. 1, 2, smile. All right, so first picture. Wait, because there are a few frame. Let me put another frame. All right, so the next frame. All right, so smile, everyone. Cheese. All right, so done. All right, so yes, thank you so much, everyone. That's all for our, for our closing ceremony photo session. All right,
Okay, thank you so
and
much.
Terima kasih.
All
Jumpa lagi.
all right, jumpa lagi.
Bye.
Assalamualaikum. Bye-bye.
Salam.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Bang.